All right, we are live. I am Chris, the space-time sorcerer, and in my quest to learn how to create things... Uh-oh, I have an echo. Of course, that would happen. Always scuff with new streamers. So yes, in an effort to learn how to create things, I will be learning to use Blender. And by learning to use Blender, I mean I'm going to go through this tutorial step by step on how to make the infamous donuts. So this is going to be interesting. Let's see. Alright. So what do you have to say about this, Mr. Blender Guru?
This is called the 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your
All
time.
right, 3D viewport, got it.
Visualize, whether it's an animation or an archviz or anything like that, it all happens right here.
All
so
right.
By default, you can see you get three objects. You've got a cube, you've got what looks like a ball on a piece of string, that's a lamp, and then you've got a camera, this little, what would you call that, like a triangle arrow looking thing. That's all right. Okay. And then if you were to render this...
Cube, ball on string, and camera.
Hotkey F12. It would take a snapshot from that camera view, okay? And although this looks very similar to what you were just looking at, this one actually has lighting information, okay? You got shadow, you got some light off the top here.
All right.
And if you had...
So it's similar to drawing cubes when you are supposed to shade one side of the cube.
You've already used other 3D software, you're already familiar with the concept, but this is one of the basic principles of 3D rendering. What you build in the 3D viewport is sort of like a simplified version of what it is you're trying to create. And then when you're ready for that final image, you hit render, and then it uses your CPU or your GPU to crunch all the numbers and calculate the light and the bounces and everything like that.
Good to know.
Final, beautiful image. So that's the basics. All right, but you might notice, like, okay, well, all right, can we move this thing? How do we even do something basic like move it? There's two ways you could do it. One would be to use the move tool in your toolbar. If you activate
so there's a move tool.
You can see that over the cube now you get these arrows. And if you were to click and drag on any of those arrows, you would move it along that. All right. If you clicked on the white circle in the middle, then that would just be sort of like free dragging it.
Okay, so the circle in the middle, free drag.
You could do it that way, but actually, I never do it that way because it is far easier to just learn the hotkey. Which in this case is G. G for grab.
G,
so
grab.
G,
okay.
The cursor doesn't have to be anywhere near it.
That is good to know.
I'm not clicking. My hands are off the clicker. It's just attached to your cursor basically the moment you hit G. And then if
that
you
is helpful.
Left click, it will confirm its movement. So G, click. And my cursor could be anywhere, right?
So G to, very nice.
Where is my cursor? Do I have to like get it on here?
So as you can probably see, my cursor's in the lower left, and it's still letting me move the cube around. Good to know. Yes, hydrate, Mr. Guru.
4 minutes. All right. Anyways.
All right.
Now, one thing you're missing with this is those axes lines, like being able to move
the axis lines. So the G, you don't get the axis.
You want to use it all the time. And you can do that after you have hit G by typing the letter of the axis.
G,
so there are three axes, and the axes letters are X.
X,
left and right,
all right.
Y, which is back
Y,
and forwards, and Z,
and
which is
Z.
Up and down. Some 3D softwares call the Y-axis
X, Y, Z.
The blue one. Alternatively, you can also, as you're moving it, if you hold down on your mouse, on your scroll wheel, if you push in, that's called the middle mouse button, push in until it clicks, and just hold that, and you can see you get this little line that draws out. And then you can just drag it to the nearest line,
I see.
Nearest axis, and it will automatically snap to that, which is really
good
handy.
to know. Good to know, sir.
Not too bad. Okay, so that's moving things. Now, the other two actions that are really common is rotate and scale. And you can, again, you could use the tool just by clicking here, and then you can you know, rotate it on a specific axis. You could click in the middle and like do a trackball thing. Scale, exact same
All
thing.
right.
Scale it like that. But again, I recommend learning the hotkeys, which you can learn just by hovering over it.
Hotkeys.
And yeah, the hotkey for
Rotate
this one. So where it says
R.
shortcut, shift, spacebar, it's technically true. You could activate it from this little menu here if you hit shift spacebar. But it's the one after that, R. Really easy to remember. R for rotate. Okay, so rotate, and then you can hit the letter of the axes as well, or do that same holding the middle mouse button. Oh, that's weird. Maybe because I did it after tapping it. Anyways,
I found something he hasn't mentioned yet.
Which is
changing my editing viewpoint.
Okay, S, X, Y, and Z. Like that. And if you want to cancel a movement, you
Make
can
it
hit
big.
escape, or you can just right click as well. And
Make it tiny. Okay, scale.
But yeah, so you can see you could do quite a lot just with those few little movements there. Okay, so that's how you move stuff about.
All right.
Now let's talk about the next thing you probably want to learn is like, how do I actually move my view? Like, how could I look and explore the rest of this?
What I accidentally learned.
With your middle mouse button.
Indeed.
Okay, so if you click in on your scroll wheel until it clicks, you are orbiting. That is how you orbit. And my laptop people with trackpads, you are panicking right now because you've just realized you don't have a middle mouse button.
If I were using a laptop, I would have a USB mouse plugged into the laptop, because that is what I do.
On that, you can see that you are able to free rotate around.
All right.
Alternatively, you can also go Edit Preferences, and then underneath Input, if you click Emulate 3-button mouse, this will enable you to, holding down Alt, if you then hold down left click, it just does the same thing as the middle mouse button.
There it is.
Which is pretty cool. It's not bad.
Good to know, though I don't need it since I'm using a desktop with a proper mouse.
Depending on the size of your screen, you might want to change the resolution, because by default it's 1, which on my 4K monitor, you can see that my buttons and the text is really small. And if you crank it all the way up, you can get it to something comfortable.
It may be a little small, but I think I'm comfortable with it.
And by the way, I'm snapping it. Like as you're dragging something, if you hold down Control, it's using incremental numbers, so it keeps it to like
interesting.
I'd normally go like 1.4 if I was using it myself, but it's a tutorial, so I'll keep it big so you guys can see.
All right.
What I'm getting at. Cool. And another thing, just while I'm here, just mentioning, some of you are from other 3D software, 3ds Max, Maya, that kind of thing. You might find it helpful to know there's an industry compatible key map.
Industry compatible key map.
I'll put them up on the screen here, but it's basically, it's more common keyboard shortcuts if you use to other software. But for this tutorial series and everyone else, I recommend sticking to the Blender one, because of course, all the hotkeys and everything you'll learn whilst learning Blender will be for this hotkey thing. Anyways, all right, okay, so that is that's.
Where was he just now? I think I missed something.
You can see as I. Anyways, all right. Just mentioning some of you.
So he was back here. Okay, key map. Is that where he was? Perhaps not. Perhaps I. This is the button. Okay, Blender 27X, and industry compatible. All right, I think we can resume.
As I orbit around, it's like locked on to my middle of my screen here. Okay, if I want, I
believe I missed where he extended the cube.
Which is Shift middle mouse button. Okay, now I'm shifting my view to somewhere else where I could pan around.
How did he extend?
Shift again.
That transform,
and if you're on
perhaps.
Trackpad, you could also use this, move the view. This little hand icon thing at the top there. Do invest in a mouse, please. You will need it for 3D. You really should get a mouse. It's going to be tough. The other thing that I'm doing right now is I'm using the scroller to zoom in and out.
Yes.
You can also use this little magnifying glass up there, or hold down Control, and then again click in on the middle mouse, and that will use a smooth movement rather than the scroll wheel, which is quite jaggedy.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's say you've moved the cube all the way over there. Like, okay, so you could, if you wanted to go and inspect your cube, you could, work your way over there by using Shift middle mouse button to pan over there. But it is far easier to just learn the hotkey number pad period, which will focus on any selected object. So if I want to go to my camera over there, I can select my camera, and number pad period will take me over to there.
That's what he did earlier.
My laptop users are going, oh no, I don't have a number pad. All right. The alternative way to do it is hold down the tilde key, which is that weird key underneath
In
your
this
stick
configuration, it makes me think of
that
a
brings up a
desktop
pie menu
tower.
with a bunch of view options, and view selected is
All
focus.
right.
View selected will take you there. Okay, cool. So we've learned orbiting with middle mouse, shift middle mouse to pan, and then control middle mouse to zoom in and out or scroll. The other one you probably want to learn is align your view to axes, because it's something that you like new beginners often end up like upside down, and they're like, how did this happen? So you can go to bring yourself the right way up just by clicking one of these letters on your axes up here. Okay, so if you click that, I'm now the right way. Well, am I the right way up? Yes, I'm the right way up. I'm just focused on a weird part of the scene. That's why it's very weird. Alternatively, instead of these, so there's the 3 axes that you could snap yourself to. You could also learn the hotkeys, which is number pad 1 for front view, 1 for front view, 3 for side view, and 7 for top view. That's only number
front,
pad. It doesn't
side,
work for your
7.
keys along the top unless you wanted to enable that over here, emulate number pad, and then it would do that. But yeah, so that's handy as well. You might also find you'll notice, that in this view, this is orthographic mode. Okay, so we can't see the other sides of our cube right now. It's a weird looking cube, but we can't see the other sides because this is orthographic mode. It's like looking at it with like a focal length of like infinity, right? So there's no depth in our scene right now, which is actually really handy, and it defaults to it for this align.
Interesting.
Immediately, because you usually want that, but the hotkey for that is number pad 5, and that will take you in and out of perspective mode. You can also do it up there like that. You can see the difference. Oh, and another way that you could see align to view, because there's a couple of ways. You could also use that tilde key. That'll take you to the top, the right, the side, etc. You could also use the viewport.
Right.
You could change those. It's also got the hotkeys there if you happen to forget them.
Very good information.
The other way is the same as ZBrush, if you're familiar with ZBrush.
ZBrush.
Oh, I just cleared the location of that with Alt-G. You don't need to remember that one. That's a weird one. Similar to ZBrush, holding down Alt whilst middle mouse button orbiting will also snap it to the nearest axes, which is also really handy as well. So if I'm like moving around and I'm like, I want to look up, just hold down Alt and it'll just snap it there. Which is really handy.
Oh, I see what happened now.
That's kind of the 3D viewport. We'll obviously get way more into this as we delve into the other lessons. But whilst we're here, these other sections over here. So on the right-hand side, this is your properties. And as you can imagine, it's the properties of things in the 3D viewport. Or the scene. You could change render settings or things here. And look, there's a lot here. Like I would strongly recommend not trying to learn all the values because you're not going to remember them anyway.
Oh, goodness.
We'll go through them as they're needed in this tutorial series.
I
think the best way to learn is to just do for something that you need to do. So that's what I try to teach.
The way to learn is to
do. These options, some of these options will change depending on what is selected. So like if my camera is selected, you can
I am learning to stream by doing.
And then I could change some camera settings.
As I am learning Blender by doing.
Selected, I get some material settings, right? I could click material and I could change the color to red. And I could see a beautiful gray red color. It's a weird looking red. The reason it's not changing over here in the 3D viewport is because, again, this is a simplified view of the final render. So there's no material properties in this view. We'll get to viewport rendering later on, but for now, you would see it, though, if you were in rendered, again, F12, to do an actual render. Now, at the top here,
there we are.
We have got a outliner. So this is keeping a running inventory of everything that you've got in your 3D viewport at the moment.
Oh, I see.
So we've got 3 objects, and we've got.
Did that even come up on the
collection
OBS?
Is just, it's like a folder,
no,
basically.
OBS did not show that.
Simple way to think of it. So you can like organize.
Okay, so when I hit render, the stream itself does not pop the render up.
Yeah, whatever. Right?
Maybe I should change
so that'll automatically update as you add things to the scene. Like if I was to duplicate my object, which I can do by hitting Shift D to duplicate, you can see there's created another object right up there in the outline. So if I ever like lose something and I'm like, oh, where's that thing? I can just find it on here and then just, bam, whoops, bam.
Bam.
Oh, by the way, I just accidentally tapped number pad 0, which is how you can look through the camera view. You could also do it by hitting the little camera icon
there we
right
go.
there,
And then when I X this out,
by
it
going
goes
viewport,
back to here.
camera, or by hitting the tilde key. So there are 4 places to get viewport options depending on what device or whatever it is that you're looking
goodness.
at. I deleted something by hitting X. You could also do it by hitting delete. By the way, I'm throwing a lot of keys at you, keyboard shortcuts. It's a lot to take in, especially when you're starting. So I created a keyboard shortcut PDF, and the link for that is in the description. It's just a list. It's like 3 or 4.
Or I can pause the video and take a quick glance at this. Toolbar T, properties N, X or delete, add object, node. Interesting. What does Shift A do? Alright. Now it looked like he made a copy of an object. How did he do that? Duplicate, Shift D. Okay, that must be what he... Ah, here we are. They're multiplying. Soon there will be zillions. Apparently right-click caused it to cease existence. But we can just go delete and delete and delete and resume video.
4 pages of the most common.
Oh wait, why is this still here?
You'll need to learn.
Okay.
Or you might need to reference as you're using Blender. So you can basically load it up on another monitor whilst you're working, and you've got it there as reference if you need it. I used to make it like a bonus for signing up for my newsletter, but now I'll just make it free. So you don't have to subscribe. You can just click that link, view it, and hopefully that'll make it easier to use Blender. You can still subscribe to
all right, Captain Guru.
It's a weekly newsletter on tutorials, artworks, and things that I find in the 3D industry. So if you want to keep up to date and learn new things, you can subscribe to that in the description as well. But that's it for this one, because we have covered quite a lot of ground. So
Alright, so he is done with that one, so I must move on to the next part of the tutorial.
Brought to you by my company, Polygon. High quality models and textures for better renders. Alright, enough faffing around, as my late grandfather would say. We have learned the basics of the interface, all the hotkeys. We fooled around. Now we're going to start building that donut. Okay, so we are going to delete our default cube, which is just the delete key, or X.
Bam.
Which is
no more cube.
Shortcut.
Be gone,
replace
cube.
it with something new. So to add a new object in Blender, you need to go up to Add, up here, and you get this long list, or you can hit the hotkey, which is what I'm going to be using for the tutorial, Shift A.
Shift A for add.
Truthfully, most of these options, a lot of the options you rarely use. Like speaker, I don't think I've ever used.
Speaker?
Most of the time what you're looking for is mesh, because to render anything,
mesh.
you really need to start with a mesh. Like if you followed like a character tutorial, you might be surprised when
Torus, of course.
With a cube, and then we'll bippity-boo, and we'll form the character eventually from that, right?
Well then.
You have to start with something. So usually you pick the object which most resembles what it is you're trying to create. And in this case, there's a really
torus.
It's the donut-shaped one.
Ha ha
the
ha.
torus.
Oh Lord, we are going to have donuts very quickly.
Except for Blender.
Oh, I've known about toruses for some time.
But evidently the mathematicians decided they need a special word for it.
The torus.
Okay. When you add an object and do certain actions actually in Blender, you get options straight after adding it, okay? But they're kind of hidden because they're trying to stay out of the way unless you need them. And it's down there in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little box.
All right.
If you click it, it expands. And then you get options like
a little
the
box.
Resolution and the size of
this is
it and everything.
Box.
Now, if you don't see that box, it's probably because you accidentally clicked off it, okay? It'll only show it after you've just added it. If you click off it, it assumes you're fine with it. You're good, okay? Now, if you haven't done another action since then, if you haven't edited and clicked on something else or whatever, you can temporarily bring it back for one last time, really, until you do something else with F9. Okay. So F9 will bring those same options back just at your cursor, basically. But if you don't see it, then just re-add it, delete it, and re-add it, and you'll get
All
those
right,
options
here we
back again.
are. I've already
Okay,
done
so
that. Let
with
us
this,
proceed.
let's make some changes to it. Okay, so for starters, this is a very thin donut, and you want to know this maybe,
We
but
want
this
a
is the
thick
third time I've made
donut.
this donut beginner series. Every time there's a new version of Blender, I make this series again.
Nice.
So this is number 3. And basically, for the last 5 years of
That
my
is
life,
dedication.
I have been seeing every day on Twitter when someone tags me in their donut render. And I've become very good at realizing the attributes that make donuts look good. And I think the best donuts are the ones that look thick.
Thick.
The ones that look
Absolute
like, I want to sink my teeth
thickness.
into that because it's got a lot of icing.
How do
It's got a
we...
lot of
How did he
dough.
do that?
I don't know. Just something about a fat donut.
28,
Just
25. Okay.
that looks delicious. So I'm going thick this time. Okay. And then the major segments and the minor segments. These are, as you can probably see, the
How did he make
the
this?
resolution of our donut, but it is it's the amount of geometry.
Perhaps that's how he made this.
This, you are probably tempted to go,
There we go.
like really high, because this is what I did when I first started using Blender in 3D. I'm like, I'm trying to make something high quality and realistic, so it's got to be smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go really high res.
Right, what do we actually want?
You do not want that. I immediately realized when I started using this is a terrible idea. For one, you can't go back. Okay, when you go high, you can't if you go back. Low, you can add other things, which is what we're going to do to make it smoother. But it's harder to go back. And also with this, it takes longer to render. It's harder to work with because it's a bigger file. Your viewport slows down.
Don't just default to a bajillion segments
and also it is harder
or
to
polygons
work with,
or whatever the term
we're
is.
into edit mode, and we're going to do this later and like do some edits and stuff.
Oh
here.
my
I have to work with
goodness!
this many vertices, these little points, and that is just
oh my goodness.
So you actually want the exact opposite. So, we want to keep it as minimum. Okay, so the minimum
he's putting this at 48.
We could go like really low, but we're actually going to use part of this donut for the icing. So I'm trying to think,
all right,
what am I going to do with the icing? Am I going to make some like dribbly bits going down it?
Okay, okay, we have this.
Having done this a few times, I think I'm going to go with around like somewhere around 40 to 20.
All right.
Yeah, something like that. Let's go 16. 16 looks good.
Okay.
By the way,
I'll duplicate that setting.
This, because how could you if you're a beginner? But like it's also a good idea to try to keep square faces because as a general, if you make it
square
organic,
faces,
and it's going to be smooth. If it's got rectangular,
these
faces,
are fairly square.
Can, like stretch the shading and things just start to look weird. So I'm trying to keep it generally to a square face. Doesn't have to be a hard rule, but something like that. All right, then I'm going to click off it, and I'm done. And I can't get those options temporarily with F9, but you get the idea. Okay, cool.
Right.
So, great. Let's talk about first of all the size of this donut, okay? Because although it looks like
of the donut,
what is the scale of our scene here, right? We're like looking into the distance there, like how big is this grid floor? We don't know. It could be microscopic. It could be 500 meters. It could be landscape size. We don't know.
Giant grid, tiny grid.
Each one of these grid
all depends on the scene.
Is it 1 meter or 2? I think it's 1 meter. Hang on. Yes, it is 1 meter. Okay, so this actually the size of our donut is humongous. It is 3 meters by 3 meters. Okay, so if you
giant donut.
N. We'll bring up your properties. Very handy.
N properties.
You just bring it up when you want to learn. Click on your object and then go to item, and then you can see details around your object. Okay, so it's 3 meters by 3 meters, which is like roughly like 2 people laying down lengthways. By the way, speaking of that, if you are American, for my American audience, you can change your units to be wacky imperial, and you can get 9.9 periwinkles or whatever it is. I don't know. You can do that. I'm going to use.
I think I'm comfortable enough with meters.
All right. So this obviously needs to be much smaller. So we're going to scale it. Scaling the hotkey S. Scale it down to the size of a donut, which I've learned is around about like the biggest size would be around about like 10 centimeters, right? Yeah, roughly. So 10 centimeters is what we're looking for. Something like that. We could have done it when we added the torus, but that was radius.
So I suppose that would be 0.1 meter.
Scale it down after we make it, and it'd be much easier to figure out. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do is apply the scale because, and this is another thing you would never know if you're a beginner, but it's sort of a running joke in the 3D world. But like anytime you run into a problem with your mesh, something's not working, apply the scale. Because if your scale is wrong, other things tend to perform wrong, like modifiers and other things like that. So this scale here should pretty much always be 1 if you can, yeah, try to make it always 1, roughly speaking. So to apply your scale, you go Control A and
Control
then scale. Okay, so Control A for apply and then scale.
Scale.
So now it is 1. Nothing has changed, but it just means things will work better in the future. I'm just doing it because I know
probably has something to do with weird math behind the scenes in the actual program.
Messed up, and it was because of this part I didn't say hit. Anyway, all right. Okay, so how do we get rid of these jagged lines? Because that's probably your next question. How do we get rid of these jagged lines? There are two types of shading in Blender or in 3D, flat and smooth. So by default, it is flat. To change it to smooth, we just right-click and then hit Shade Smooth. Okay.
Shade Smooth.
And when we do that, it is basically like for these faces here. It has taken, instead of treating each face separately, if they're an adjacent face, it's going to like stretch the light across. It's going to treat it as if it is
achieving
one continuous face
donut.
rather than two faces. So for organic
Welcome
objects, which means length
to the donut
sphere, essentially, or rounded things maybe. You generally want smooth things, and then for like architecture or hard surface things,
the
you want
donut.
so shade smooth. So we've got rid of that. That's good. Now you'll notice that it has not fixed the silhouette of our object. Okay? So shade smooth is a illusion.
I see that.
Okay? It's not actually adding any geometry, which is great because it's light, it's lightweight, it's easy to work with.
So this is an illusion.
It's not adding geometry, but your silhouette will still be broken or still look jagged. The only way to fix that is to add more detail. It's something that games. That's kind of the thing. If you want to look at a game and go like, I wonder how poly this thing is. Like, look at the silhouette of a character or the shape of a building or something like that. And if you see jagged lines, you can basically see the mesh, like how high poly something is by the silhouette.
Interesting.
So we can fix that with something called a subsurf operation, okay, or subdivision.
Subsurf operation.
And there are a few ways to do it, but the way we do it in Blender is with adding a modifier. Okay, so we click this little wrench. Or is it a spanner? Is that a spanner?
Wrench.
It's been a while since I got
wrench, spanner, same difference.
Over here. And then go up and underneath add modifier. If you click it, you get a whole bunch of different options here. And the one that we're looking for is, I mean, you use it so often. I wish it was at the top, but it's not. It's down here, subdivision surface. So you click that, and you might see that it has now smoothed out ever so slightly. You can see
ever so
there,
slight
the
smoothing.
edge is no longer there. Or it is there, but it is less. So what is subsurf, it's called a subsurf, even though it's called subdivision. Subsurf modifier, what it is doing is and I'm going to temporarily turn this off by that little icon there, that's viewport. So if you uncheck that, it's disabling it for your viewport. And that one is for render, if you want to disable it for your render. Okay, so what it is doing is, you can see the edge there, right? If there are 3 points that make up that edge there, subsurf is now adding in, it's doubling the amount of detail across the entire mesh, not just the silhouette, the entire mesh. Every single point, it is now adding another one. Now, if you do 2 levels, so levels, viewport, and render, you can probably guess, that's just one operation. Okay, if I set this to 2, which is what you would see, set it to 2, which is what you see when you would render it, it's doing it again. Okay, so it's, I guess the word's exponentially. It's exponentially adding detail every time you add this. So it's going to do it again and again and again. So obviously you don't want to go too high because otherwise your render times would be crazy. And yeah, you just want to keep it as low as possible. So often I keep it 1 or 0 whilst I'm working in the viewport, and then for the render,
1 or
0
0
or 2 or something.
Okay.
Anyways, all right. Okay, so we're spending a little long on this.
Interesting.
But I need to just give you some background on how to make things look smooth without really going high res. Okay. So as I teased before, this mesh is made up of little points, and we can edit those points and adjust things by going into edit mode, which you can do by hitting tab on your keyboard. Okay. Another way is to go up to the top left-hand corner, change from object mode to edit mode. Okay. So tab is just a fast way to switch between those 2 modes.
I think I like tab.
Because why not? Control tab will bring up the pie menu, and then you can enter into along with just object and edit mode, but like texture paint and sculpt mode, and
Texture
we'll do
paint.
a bunch of stuff later on. But edit
Very
mode,
interesting.
Okay. So in edit mode, we can see that we're now able to see the skeleton roughly that makes up our mesh. Okay, each of these little points here is what makes up our mesh. So these points are called vertices.
Ooh,
Sorry, a single one is called a vertex. Multiples are called vertices. Always get them confused because
the vertex and the vertices. Will there be a test?
It's not vertexes, it's vertices. Anyways, these little points make up our mesh. And on each of these points, if you've got 3 or more, usually 4 is the ideal one you're usually aiming for when you're making meshes, you can make a face. Okay, so if I just delete, I'll just hit X and I'll show you what it looks like without a face. Okay, so between each of these points there, I'll add another one with F, there is a face. Okay, so all the points together make up a face, and then that makes up your mesh. So what this means is that with these points, if I want to change the look of my mesh, I can take some of these points and I can move them. Okay?
Move the point.
Use the exact same hotkeys as you did before. So to move something, it is G for grab. Okay, so if I move this up and then go back out of object mode, edit mode to object mode, you can see as I move around, it's now got a little lump on it. Okay, pretty handy.
I can give the donut horns.
So I could do that, right?
Make it the horned
the shape
donut.
Of my mesh. Okay, so let's say like I wanted to, you know, like make my donut look kind of like lopsided, or like add some detail, because this is necessary, by the way. Your brain, when it thinks about objects, because you've seen them so many times, it simplifies it in your head. You think of a donut as being round, but it's bumpy, it's lumpy. It was thrown in the fire. The guy who like made the dough, it was all lopsided. But in your head, you just think of it as a round circle. The digital world will always give you the perfect thing. So you need to go in and add those imperfections. There's an old quote, don't know who said it. Imperfection is the digital perfection. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very true. So think of that. So anyways, we need to add some
a little bit of imperfect
make
here, a little bit of imperfect
there. So if we held down
there.
Shift, we could select multiple points, and then we could drag these out. I could do this. I could, you know, slowly go through it. Now this is tedious, as I'm sure you can see. Clicking, lots and lots of clicking, little points, and that's really because that's not the way I would do this. What I would do is use a feature that you use all the time, and that is proportional editing. So if you click this little button at the top here, or the hotkey for that is O, turn that on and off. What this will do is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now it's actually grabbing vertices around it and it is moving it together as a whole. Now by default, your proportional size
that's a little strange.
is really high, okay? So if I scroll up, I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut, okay? Now, this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video.
Here we are.
The last version of this I made. And this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually, it gives you the measurement. As I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall-off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.0.
Oddly enough, I think I almost prefer just doing the shift
keep scrolling up
clicks.
until you see it. And if you are on trackpad, because those people also got stuck, because they're like, how do I scroll while I'm doing it? All you do is, on trackpad, you tap G, then do a single click, and then down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got those options again. And then you could adjust your proportional size to like a 0.04. And then if you move, you should see the correct proportional fall off. Okay. Really, guys, invest in a mouse, please.
Something strange going on
Going
here.
trackpad, look, it's fine.
Maybe
for
if I
Facebook,
turn off
but
the
like,
O.
you're doing stuff in 3D, you gotta have a mouse. Come on. All right. Okay, so now that I do this with my fall off radius, and if
I just love doing
down,
this. It's so
I can
ridiculous.
adjust, and I can make my donut look however I want, much more easily. Okay, make this part go out. Maybe make this part have like a little lump that's sort of skew-if like that. Maybe this middle part.
I see what he's trying to do.
Okay. And I'll do another one here, something like that. Okay.
There's a way to
that's
do
a
it.
little lopsided. It's a little bit repetitive of what's on that side. And this is maybe a little bit too far. Just sort of playing it by eye. But I have to keep this for the rest of the donut, for the rest of the tutorial. So I'm trying to do it well. Okay, it's something else, by the way, another hotkey. You can see that if I want to move this up, if I was to move it like this,
deform the
It's
donut.
moved everything also
The
left to
donut
right as well,
does not
okay?
deserve perfection.
Because of my camera angle, okay? If I'm looking at something like this and I'm moving it, it is moving it across.
Now, I do kind of
the
wonder
donut, so
why
it's
he
scrunching
decided
everything
that
going
the
this way.
tutorial should be
But that's
about
not what I want.
donuts
I want it
instead
to
of
go
about
directly up.
cubes.
So it means I have to get my camera angle like right down here.
Though I
to
suppose
get
a
that up.
donut does get you
Alternatively,
into
a better
curves
way,
earlier.
not to throw too many hotkeys at you, get my keyboard shortcuts if you haven't already.
All
Link in the description.
right, Mr. Guru.
But another hotkey is Alt S, which instead of moving it
Alt
just
S.
arbitrarily, this will now move it
Interesting.
according to which direction those faces are pointing. And this is actually perfect for this exact case because we've got, points, rounded around it. And it's just, it's tedious to have to get my camera angle exactly right when really I just want to be able to select certain parts and then pull them in and out. So Alt S allows me to do that. The shrink and fatten tool is what it is called. But other softwares, I think they call it move along normals or something like that. Something like that. All right. And then maybe the base as well. I think
All right.
on the base.
The imperfect donut must be created.
Something like that. Now there is a sculpt tool, which we'll talk about when we get to the icing.
We've got
It
this.
could also do this, but that is not the point of this tutorial. So I'm just doing proportional editing because, to be honest, like this proportional editing is perfect for this kind of thing.
All right.
Yeah. Cool. So it's just entering into edit mode to do your changes, going into object mode to see how it looks, and then swapping back out with tab again. And that's really all it is. I think this is too thick.
This is starting to look like a more
Too
realistic
lopsided.
donut.
I went too far with the imperfections. But that also comes into like the style of it, of what you're doing.
I mean, this looks like a reasonable donut to me.
Something like that. Oh, by the way,
It
another
is
side point.
starting to look
I
like a
just
more
mentioned,
believable
talking
donut,
about object
truly.
and edit mode, okay? A big problem a lot of beginners have that I find is that later on, you'll be like, I'll say, all right, so select your lamp and your camera or something like that. And they'll be like, oh, I can't click on it. What's happened? It's because you are still in edit mode. Okay. Edit mode means you cannot click on anything else other than the object that you are editing. You're still in this. When you switch back to object mode, you're now able to click on any object in your scene, but in edit mode, it is locked to that view. So if you can't click on things, just remember, check what mode you're in. You're probably in edit mode. Switch to object mode and you'll be fine. Okay. Just to finish on something completely random.
Interesting.
Why not just throw it in there just as a little Easter egg for those of you.
It looks like you cannot tab switch into edit mode when you're selecting the camera or the user perspective.
Random, and this will just select random vertices on your mesh, and then you've got a little ratio thing you could change down the bottom there. Then, if you used Alt S, you would basically make a lumpy looking donut. So it's kind of like a quick way if you want.
I need to go back. What did he say about select random?
Okay. Just to finish on something completely random, because why not? Just throw it in there just as a little Easter egg for those of you that made it to the end of the video. Here's something cool. If you go to select, there's an option there for select random, and this will just select at random vertices on your mesh, and then you've got a little ratio thing you could change down the bottom there. Then, if you used Alt S, you would basically make a lumpy looking donut. So it's kind of like a quick way if you wanted to make a lumpy looking donut, you could do it that way. And also if you change the fall off type, okay, so this is that ring, that little circle that goes around it, right? If you changed it from
maybe I need to do that
the
again.
Smooth one to sharp, then you would make it something else, like a spiky warped donut. I don't know. It actually looks better without the subsurf and like flat. It's like, no, it does not. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking with that.
Well, that's an interesting way of doing it, I suppose.
All right, just something random to finish on. Okay, so play with your donut, get something that you like, and then join me in the next part as we do the icing. So click here, and I will see you in the next
Well, the
video.
random bit did make the interior part look a bit more interesting. It is looking more and more donut with each passing moment. All right. Okay, Mr. Guru, teach me modifiers, I guess.
To make renders like these, you need high-quality assets, which is why I created Polygon.
Indeed, that is why you created Polygon,
textures, and
probably.
HDRs that work in any 3D software. Get started today at Polygon.
All right, Mr. Guru, I will
Welcome
consider
back
that.
to the Donut Show. where we make virtual donuts that we cannot eat. In this part, we're going to be making the icing. So,
all right,
with our
Mr.
wonderful
Guru,
donut
teach
here
me
selected,
icing.
we're going to, well, first of all, yeah, like icing. I mean, you could do it a million ways. You could like add a plane and then like model it out and try and pull it down and then sculpt it and do a bunch of different
All
ways.
right.
The easiest way, really, whenever you're doing something, is to like try to reuse part of your mesh wherever you can. So we've already got the shape of a donut. We can duplicate our donut, shave off half of it, and then we've basically got icing. So that's what we're going to do. So enter into edit mode, and we want to select half of our donut. So if we went into
half the donut,
that, like if we looked at it from this, you know, if we drew, you can see we're missing part of it, right? Because it's like, this is one of those cases is what I'm trying to say, where you need to use straight on. Okay, so or number pad 1, number pad 3, whatever you want to do, something like that. Okay, and by the way, when you use this, it also switches you to orthographic mode. Okay, so perspective mode is where you've got the depth fall off. Okay, and then orthographic mode is when it is like as if it was like on a focal length of like infinity. So you're seeing like the actual, what's the best way to describe it? No perspective, essentially, zero perspective. And you can toggle between that, by the way, also with a number pad 5 or by clicking this little gizmo on the right-hand side there at any point. Doesn't have to be in a certain view. Okay, cool. So if we were to just drag over this right now, it looks like we've got half of our donut. However, if you moved around, you would see we're missing the other half of it, okay? And that's because it's hard, okay? The mesh is hard, and therefore to select on the other side, we have to be able to see through it. And we can do that by going up here and toggling X-ray, or the hotkey for that is
this looks like a reasonable selection for where the icing should go.
Over it, you can see that we've got exactly the top half of our donut.
Although he wants me to get the exact top half of the donut.
So we want to duplicate this and then separate.
How did you X-ray that again?
Hit Shift D, which is how you duplicate around.
Where is your X-ray?
When we drag over it, you can see that we've got exactly the top half of our donut. If we went into, you can see that, like if we looked at, okay, cool. Okay,
here I am jumping all over the video. Here we are.
This right now, it looks like we've got half of our donut. However, if you moved around, you would see we're missing the other half of it. Okay, and that's because it's hard. Okay, the mesh is hard, and therefore to select on the other side of it, we have to be able to see through it, and we can do that by going up here and toggling X-ray, or the hotkey for that is Alt-Z, and that will now show us right through it. And now when we drag over it, you can see that we've got exactly the top half of our donut.
So Alt-Z toggles X-ray.
Perfect. So we want
Good
to duplicate this and then separate it. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift D, which is how you duplicate, or you can go up to Mesh and then click on Duplicate, wherever that would be.
Very interesting.
Right there, duplicate at the top. Yeah, but Shift D. Okay, now when you do that, you can see that it is now locked onto my cursor, okay? And it's telling me, where do you want to place this duplicate? And I don't. I want to leave it exactly where it was. So if I hit Escape or right-click, it's going to cancel the movement and put exactly where it was, but it is now
I've done
duplicated it. Now what we want
Why
to do
is this
move this to its own object.
considered?
Because you can see that we've now got vertices on top of vertices, and they need to be their own separate objects. So to do that,
Control C.
P for part of the mesh. Go
How
to
do I
another,
undo?
I don't know. It's
There
P.
we go.
For whatever
Undid.
reason, it's always been P. And we're looking for selection. So separate by the selected part of the mesh. Okay. And now in object mode, if we switch out of X-ray mode, you can see that we now have two objects, and actually we can see them up here in the outliner as well. Okay. And now just very quickly, because I know that some of you will have just messed up.
What did you say?
And you are now screaming at the screen, oh no, how am I going to fix this? When you did this step, you duplicated it, you right-click to cancel it, and then you accidentally did a single click. If you clicked something else, you've now got mesh on top of a mesh, and you don't know which vertex is which. Like, which is the one that was the one that you just made, right?
Undo.
Or which one is the actual donut. So if you ever run into this problem, what you can do is to select only things that are connected, because these are no longer connected, right? There's bits that are not connected. It's Control L, or just mouse over it and then just hit a single L. L for loose parts. Is it? I don't know what it is. Link. Oh, it's linked. Okay, select linked. There you go. Then when you do that, you can actually, find the right part.
Oh dear.
So now I've actually just got just my donut and then just my icing. Fantastic. Okay, so up
Okay.
here in the outliner, you can see 2 objects, and it's probably a good time to name it. Okay, so you can name it by just double clicking in the outliner, and we can call it icing. Another way to name it is if you've just got your object selected anywhere in your 3D viewport, it's the same hotkey as Windows renaming files. It's F2. F2, and I can now type in donut, and there we go. So 2 things, and you can organize it however you want. Cool. So our icing is currently looking like a skin tight something.
Well, the issue I'm having is I'm not actually seeing the second item in my, I'm not seeing the second item. I'm a little confused about this. Alright, I'm not seeing the second item when I do mine. What did he do that I didn't do? Oh dear. First problem is I somehow have... Well, let's try this again, because... Okay. Now I have reselected in the more correct mode. Now... Oop. Tick. Something's still fishy about this. Something is still fishy about this. I don't think I fully understand what I'm doing here. Oh my. Something is not quite right. So what are we doing here, Mr. Guru? What are we supposed to do to continue making our donut?
Time to name it, okay? So you can name it by just double-clicking in the outline.
All right, I need to go back farther.
The loose parts, so they're connected, right? There's pits. So if you ever run it...
When exactly did he get the second torus?
Switch out of X-ray mode. You can see that we now have 2 objects, and actually we can see them up here in the outliner as well. Okay.
That's strange. What do you mean we can see them in the outliner? I am not... I am not seeing this second torus. Where is the second torus? Wait a second. There must be a process here that I am There must be a process here that I am missing with respect to making the second torus. Now, he already has torus 2 in his
selected part of the mesh. Okay. And now, in object mode, if we switch out of X-ray mode, you can see that we now have 2 objects. So to do that, we've got its own object, because you can see that we've now got vertices on top of vertices, and they need to be their own separate objects. So to do that, the hotkey is P.
P, okay.
For part of the mesh. Go to another, I don't know. It's P.
Separate.
For whatever reason, it's always been P.
Selection.
And we're
okay, now I've got a second
separate
torus.
By the selected part of.
Okay, now I have torus 2.
In object mode, if we switch
okay,
out of,
it all makes sense to me now.
See that we now have 2 objects, and actually
it all begins to make sense. It's coming together.
And now, just very quickly,
I am beginning to understand.
Some of you will have just messed up accidentally, and you are now screaming at the screen, "Oh no! How am I going to fix this?" When you did this step, you duplicated it. You right-click to cancel it, and then you accidentally did a single click. If you clicked something else, you've now got mesh on top of a mesh, and you don't know which vertex is which. Like, which is the one that was the one that you just made, right? Or which one is the actual donut. So if you ever run into this problem, what you can do is to select only things that are connected, because these are no longer connected, right? There's pits that are not connected. It's Control L, or just mouse over it and then just
Control L.
L for loose parts. Is it? I don't know what it is. Link. Oh, it's linked. Okay, select link.
Linked.
There you go. Then when you do that, you can actually, find the right part of your mesh. Okay, so now I've actually
Select
just got
linked
just my
all.
donut and then just my icing. Fantastic. Okay, so up here in the outliner, you can see two objects, and it's probably a good time to name it. Okay, so you
Now
can
I'm
name
in a
it by
good
just double
place.
clicking in the outliner, and we can call it icing.
Donut
Another way to name it is
and
if you
icing.
if you've just got your object selected anywhere in your 3D viewport,
All
it's
right,
the same
I
hotkey
begin
as
to
Windows
understand.
renaming files. It's F2. F2, and I can now type in
Oh, I see.
donut. And there we go. So two things, and we could organize it however we want. Cool. So our icing is currently looking like a skin tight something. It's got to have some thickness to it, okay? And we can do that
Something's
with
wrong
the
with
modifiers.
this.
Okay, so going over here to your modifier stack again, we are looking for something called the solidify modifier right here. There really needs to be a search function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify, okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go wireframe, or up here, so this is solid view mode, this is wireframe mode.
All
Okay?
right, where was that modifiers?
If you went into wireframe mode, which you could stack, but the thing called these, okay, and we can do that with the modifiers. Okay, so going over here to modifier stack again, we are looking for something called the solidify modifier. Solidify. Here we are. For the modifier stack.
What the heck just happened?
A lot here at the moment. So solidify. Okay. And when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go wireframe, or up here, so this is solid view mode, this is wireframe mode, okay? In wireframe mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut, but it's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1. And now go back to solid view. Okay, so that is just a doona of icing. Okay. It's a lot. So we're going to turn our thickness down to be something a little more reasonable. And by the way, when you're dragging these values here, here's a tip. You can see that it's like really hard to control. What is this? Subtle movements is what I need, but it's moving.
How do I turn off X-ray mode?
If you hold down Shift, that is not incremental.
Oh my!
Smooth movements, subtle movements. Yeah. Anyways, holding down Shift when you need to use small numbers, and Control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that quite a lot. So yeah, Shift for smooth movements and Control for incremental, or both. Smooth, like subtle and incremental. Anyways, all right, I'm giving you all the hotkeys and everything at once. I hope it is not
a little bit too much. It is too much. I'm sorry.
Something like a 0.0015.
All right, Mr. Guru, you're getting paused for now, while I figure out how in blazes do I get out of X-ray mode. Let's see. X-ray mode. How in blazes did I wind up in X-ray mode in the first place? Fairly certain this is still in X-ray mode. Not even clear on if I the icing section out correctly. My great plans are not meeting fruition. I was planned to have zillions of these donuts by now. And yet, I have scarcely made one. The night is young, the night is young. I may still be able to make my goal before all is said and done. Goodness, where is that X-ray button, or turn X-ray off button? What in blazes? What did you do to turn off the X-ray? When did you turn off the X-ray? It probably happened ages ago and I just missed it. Oh dear. I'll go back to X-ray mode. That'll probably tell me the key again.
Okay, cool. So if we were to just drag over this right now, However, the mesh is hard, and
Yes.
therefore
Yeah.
to select on the other side of it, we have to be able to see through it. And we can do that by going up here and toggle.
Here we are. Is this the toggle X-ray? Ah, there it is. Okay. Now I can see the difference, and clearly this particular donut was made poorly. This particular donut was, the icing did not go on quite right on top. That's okay, we're making an imperfect donut, so I will advance this again, and we will resume from here, I
That
think.
is no, not incremental. What is it? Smooth movements? Subtle movements. Yeah. Anyways, holding down shift when you need to use small numbers. And control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that actually quite a lot. So yeah, shift for smooth movements and control for incremental, or both.
I see.
Smooth, like subtle and
Something is wrong.
Anyways, all right, I'm giving you all the hotkeys and everything at once. I hope it is not too much for you. All right, I'm gonna go for like something like a 0.0015 of icing, because I want it to look somewhat thick, but like not too thick. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind is that this edge here, it looks kind of weird for a lot of reasons. If we went into flat shading mode, you could see that it's basically created like a hat, a hat on our donut.
Something odd about this.
And
something odd is going on in my system. Ah, it's because I don't have advanced. Okay. Alright. Sign. Is it because the O is selected? That might be the issue. Ah, it was because the O was selected. Now I can bring this out so it's on top. That might work. It is, in fact, a definite maybe. There is something fishy about this. There is definitely something fishy about the icing. Maybe I should make the icing go up a little bit. Let's see. I'm gonna Control Z that. Something's a little fishy here. I think I'll leave it be for now. We'll see what happens. Worst case scenario, I have a very wonky looking donut at the end of this.
the reason for that is the order of our modifiers here. So a modifier is, what is the best way to think of it? Well, it's working from top to bottom. That's how we'll describe it. Okay, modifiers are fantastic because at any point we can change these settings. It is a non-destructive way of working. This subdivision settings that I had before, I think it's too high. So I can come in here and I can change these settings, okay? Make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it or I did it a different way, I could not change those settings. Non-destructive, it is fantastic. It also means that, it's working from top to bottom. So what I want to do is move this above my subdivision, which I can do by just dragging these dots at the top here, just dragging that up. And you can see that now it's doing the, if I just turn that off, it's doing the thickness part first, and then it is smoothing it, which means that that edge there that was like this before is now being forced to go like this because of the subsurf, because it adds those points and then it kind of averages them out, which is, how subdiv works. There we go. Cool. So now, I don't know, now that thickness doesn't look like enough. So I'll just increase that a little bit. And I'm going to go shade smooth again. Okay.
Ah, it needs to be thickened. I understand now. I think I understand. Alright. So how do I make it thicker? Thick. Okay. Right. Now, where was this? Just vanished. So we are under the wrench. We are once again looking at my screen and not at what he's doing has led me astray again. All right. Subtle value changes. Changing the order of money. All right. So, was under advanced, so does he have something that I don't have turned on? Something fishy is. Something does not seem to be quite right. Huh.
These settings, okay, make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it, or
I don't think I understand, Mr. Guru.
It is fantastic. It also means that yeah, it's working from top to bottom. So what I want to do is move this above my subdivision, which I can do by just of our mental, or both.
I'm afraid this does not compute to me. Victory is not assured. Nevertheless, even though I am not doing terribly good right now, I am thinking that I might be able to use this methodology in some respects to make something like maybe a flying saucer. A flying saucer might actually be more my style than donuts anyway. Nevertheless, whether I actually finish this donut or not, this has been a learning experience. Oh, upside down. Oh dear, mine clearly does not look like teachers. Ah! Oh dear. Oh my. Oh my. What to do about this? That is the question. OBS, are you glitching out again? Glitching out. Ah, let's see. So OBS has betrayed me as well. But that's okay. That's okay. It is less important for people to see what he's doing than to see what I'm doing when push comes to shove. Da, da, da. Ah, OBS, you have betrayed me. The browser has betrayed me. OBS has betrayed me. I have few friends today in my programs. Few friends indeed. Ah, times like this, I think it may be necessary to start invoking the art powers, perhaps the muses. Get the art skills going on. Nevertheless, I've definitely gotten further than I would have without a tutorial of some kind. Oh dear. All right. All right. Let's see if we can continue.
Smooth, like subtle and incremental. Anyways, all right.
I don't think I see this.
I hope it is not too much for you.
I'm afraid it is a little much. So he does not have advanced on. He has something else under advanced. When did he get that? Has that just always been there this entire time? Ah. When did he add? Add modifier. Alright, that's how he added that. Okay. Alright, I see now.
Stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify. Okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z.
Alright, so this was something I was supposed to do back before we entered wireframe mode earlier.
Wireframe mode, okay. In wireframe mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut.
Good to know.
It's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1.
This becomes 1.
Okay, so that is just like a doona of icing. It's a lot. So we're going to turn our thickness down to be something a little more reasonable. And by the way, when you're dragging these values here,
where is the thickness?
Here's a tip.
Ah, there it is.
You can see that it's like really hard to control because subtle movements is what I need, but it's moving it by a lot. If you hold down Shift, that is not incremental. What is it? Smooth movements? Subtle movements. Yeah. Anyways, holding down Shift when you need to use small numbers. And Control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that actually quite a lot. So yeah, Shift for smooth movements and Control for incremental.
Oh, goodness.
Like subtle and incremental.
This icing is ridiculous.
Right,
What did I just do?
I hope it is not too much for you. All right, I'm going to go for like something like a 0.0015 of icing because I want it to look somewhat thick, but like not too thick. Okay.
Thick, but not too thick.
Something to keep in mind is that this edge here, it looks kind of weird for a lot of reasons. If we went into flat shading mode, you can see that it's created like a hat.
Indeed.
Hat on our donut, okay? And the reason for that is the order of our modifiers here. So a modifier is, what is the best way to think of it?
What is a modifier?
It's working from top to bottom.
Top to bottom is the modifier.
Okay, modifiers are fantastic because at any point we can change these settings. It is a non-destructive way of working.
Okay.
The subdivision settings that I had before, I think it's too high. So I can come in here and I can change these settings, okay? Make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it or I did it a different way, I could not change those settings. Non-destructive, it is fantastic.
Okay.
It also means that, it's working from top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
So what I want to do is move this above my subdivision, which I can do by just dragging these dots at the top here.
Drag the dots above the subdivision.
It's doing if I just turn that off, it's doing the thickness part first, and then it is smoothing it, which means that edge there that was like this before is now being forced to go like this because of the subset.
I am a little confused about
averages them out.
Some things, because it looks like there's already a layer of icing on this, so I don't fully know why I need this now.
Cool. So now, I don't know, now that thickness doesn't look like enough, so I'll just increase that a little bit, and I'm going to go shade smooth again. Okay.
Like, it really looks like there's already a layer of icing on this. I don't understand why, but it looks like there's already one.
Modeling in the dripping parts of our icing in the next part and doing a little...
Alright. This thing I made up here looks less like icing and more like one of those weird little, I almost want to call it a cake mold for like making angel food cake or something. That's what that looks like. It looks more like that than it looks like an icing top. What we already have here looks more like icing. Let's see what happens if I try creating another torus. Because why not? Oh my goodness, it makes the big one. big one go over here, maybe. It looks like this already has some of the settings that I was using with the donut. Scale you way down. Okay, still too big, but we're on our way there. Scale you way down. I think I have heard enough of the tutorial for now. What do I want? 0.1? 0.1 might be right. That'll be fine. Probably still bigger than the other donut. Oh well. We're making ginormous donut. Why not? Now, I believe he said Alt-S reset. Whoa. That was different. I was not expecting Alt-S to do that. Maybe it was Control-S that I was supposed to use. Maybe it was Control-S. Control-S. Now that didn't do anything. That brought up the save screen. Okay. What is going on here? I thought Alt-S was supposed to reset the scaling. Maybe it was Shift-S. No, Shift-S brings this up. What did I just do? I deleted it, or no, I moved it somewhere. What? Oh my goodness, Blender. Blender, you are an arcane program of massive arcaneness. Blender, you are so very arcane. And now, it's my donut again. Oh, Blender, why? Why does Alt-S cause it to make it big again when I'm trying to reset the scale on a permanent... How did we make this work before? Alright. Online. Orientation, global mirror editing, proportional editing. Alright, well. Perhaps I should give up on donut number 2 and advance to the next tutorial. Though really, I kind of feel like I should be doing something a little bit different. Add mesh. Let's make this one a circle. Really? That's what I get for making a circle? Huh. Interesting, I suppose. So this is the circle. Grab. Huh. I mean, it really is a circle. I was expecting something that was more filled in. Maybe I should remove circle and create something else. Cylinder, yes, a cylinder. This might be more to what I'm thinking of doing. Now we make it a very, very thin cylinder. Hello again, donut. Grab my cylinder, the donut. Now let's continue. How thin are you, cylinder? That might be good enough now. Now let's see if I can find a way to make this work the way I'm thinking. Transform, perhaps? Not quite what I was thinking of. Huh. What if I... let's make a cone. One way to do it. And then it's doing something else. Let's take it to scale, I suppose. I see what's going on. And you know what? Let's continue to make it better. See what I can do with this. Needs to be more of a This is definitely not the way I was hoping. But at this point, I'm just kind of messing around with the program to see what clicks and what doesn't, generating the lopsided flying saucer. So I will duplicate that, and then I will... Now, what was I doing to rotate this earlier? It wasn't G, it was something else. Was it transform? It might have been transform. Might do the trick. Might do the trick. All right. Now, what am I looking at here? Camera's not aiming the right direction. Maybe I'll back the camera away and see if that does anything. Nope, now the camera sees nothing. How strange. Oh, because the camera's aiming the wrong way. How about now? Nope, camera still sees nothing. Still not quite aiming the right way. How about now? Alrighty then. And now I am going to send this off to my good friend Dave and tell him that I have located aliens in Blender. Oh my. Until next time, this is the Space-Time Sorcerer Chris signing off.